The next session, which is a panel discussion, as I told you, has been powered by JMK Research. And the topic of discussion is lithium ion battery recycling market trends in India. The discussion points would be LIB recycling market potential in India, technology used by key recycling brands in India, central and state level initiatives for EV battery recycling, recycling cost for different battery chemistries, challenges for lithium ion battery recycling in India, opportunities and emerging business models for battery recyclers in India. I definitely feel that this is going to be a very enriching experience and everyone is going to leave wiser after the panel discussion. So without further ado, I would like to call upon stage our esteemed moderator and one of my favorites, Dr. Jyoti Gulia, who's the founder of JMK Research and Analytics. A huge round of applause for the lovely lady. To join her for the discussion, the panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Gaurav Dolwani, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Lyco Materials. A huge round of applause for Mr. Gaurav Dolwani. Welcome back, sir. If I'm not wrong, you were here with us yesterday as well, right? Great. It's great to have you here again. The next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Prasann Dhafal, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Evergreen Recycle Karo India. A huge round of applause for Mr. Prasann here, ladies and gentlemen. The next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Rohan Singh Bais, who's the Chief Product Officer, Ziptrax Clean Tech. Okay, I think he stepped out for a quick second. We'll wait for him to join. Until then, the next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Pawandeep Singh Bawa, who's the Vice President, Sourcing, ATTERO. The next panelist that I would like to invite on stage is Mr. Chetan Jain, who's the Senior Vice President, Business Operations, Loham. The next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Venkat Rajaraman, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Signi Energy Private Limited. So I believe Mr. Rohan Singh Bais is not here with us, yes? Okay. Is Mr. Rohan Singh Bais here? All right, I think unfortunately he has not been able to join us today. So without further ado, I'm handing over the baton of the discussion to Dr. Jyoti Gulia here, who's the esteemed moderator. She will take the discussion forward. The stage is all yours, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manu. It's a pleasure to have here, and there's a good turnaround of audience also that I can see. And we have a very interesting panel set here with us, who's who of the recycling industry. And we have also views from a battery pack manufacturer also, which are important for this topic. So let's start the discussion first. And I want to understand, first of all, what are the Chetan, from you first, we can start where you can talk about, what are the key trends that we are seeing in the recycling industry in India, and what is the current market size, if you have some numbers to share?
First of all, let me thank Informa Markets and JMK Research for organizing this and giving us an opportunity to be present here. Now, what are the underlying changes that are happening in the industry, the lithium ion battery recycling industry? So if you look at the recycling industry, the market essentially was NMC dominated market when the market started, apart from LCO in terms of mobility. So if you categorize the market into three sectors, which is consumer electronics, which is mostly dominated by LCO chemistry. Then you had mobility market, which was dominated by NMC chemistry, and then you had ESS market, which was a very nascent market early on. Now the changes that are taking place is the mobility sector is moving towards LFP. Most of the four-wheeler player, be it Tata Motors, be it Mahindra, be it Maruti with its new upcoming model, be it MG Motors, everyone is working on LFP now. ESS, as the previous panel was just talking about, the market penetration has been growing very significantly given that the price points have started coming down. So essentially, if you look at it, the Indian battery market is moving towards LFP. That's the wider trend. Having said that, you will have higher performance vehicle where NMC will still continue to play a tremendously important role. So the companies like Jaguar Land Rover or Mercedes for that matter, they'll still continue to function on NMC. But India being the cost conscious market it is, and given the environment and temperature that we see here in our country, LFP is going to be the predominant chemistry for the mass market segment. So this is where the current market trends are. Of course, given that the lithium ion market in itself is a fairly new market, the market is growing at a tremendous pace where the growth is roughly 100% year on year, and the kind of waste that we are expecting in 2030 is going to be 200 gigawatt hour compared to the current scale where we are talking about just 20s or 30s of gigawatt hour as an industry space. There is going to be tremendous growth that we are expecting, and this has been pushed by government both on the demand side as well as on the supply side. How on the supply side? Government is giving PLI schemes where you have cell manufacturer or advanced cell chemistry manufacturers like Ola or Reliance who have bid for cell manufacturing. So you have subsidies on the supply side. Then on the demand side, government had FAME subsidy. Now new PM e-drive is coming up, and the government is also talking about FAME 3. So the market penetration is going to increase tremendously in the coming days, and the simple reason of the windfall is going to happen on the recycling industry because all this material at the end of the day is going to reach the end of life. And as the cell manufacturing is going to pick up, there is tremendous amount of waste which is going to get generated from the cell manufacturing waste. As the previous panel was mentioning, during the initial days when the factories are being set up, the waste is as high as 50 to 60% of the production capacity during the throughput process, and that waste over a period of time gets stabilized to somewhere between 8 to 10%. Companies like CATL and BYD are still operating at around 10 to 12%. And if we are talking about setting up 100 gigawatt hour of cell manufacturing capacities in the next couple of years, you can think the kind of scale in terms of battery recycling that we are going to see in the near future.
Thank you, Chetan, for identifying and setting the context for our discussion today. Multiple things are being talked here. So I want to understand from other recyclers also, Atero and Prasanna and Gaurav from you also, in terms of market potential, if you have to give some insights around it, any numbers around it. I want this answer from all of you.
Hello. Yeah. So just talking about the numbers, what we feel currently the market size is somewhere around 60 million USD as on date, and by 2028 we look foresee it growing at a CAGR of 30%, so touching roughly above 300 million USD. That is the penetration what we foresee going in the EV ecosystem. Now, looking at these specific scenarios, India being more predominantly looking at the two-wheeler segment, which is expected to grow somewhere around 10,000 units annually in the coming time frame. That is the projections what we foresee. As a recycler, technology plays a very vital role over here. What you can do and extract from these batteries, what sort of batteries you can manage. There are multiple players who talk about the recycling of different chemistries. The challenge is managing the LFP and the LTO chemistries. In MC, I foresee that multiple players talk about and they can manage it. But in our sense, the breakthrough what we have made is the LFP and the LTO recycling along with the NMC, what we are able to do. It is critically important to have a circular economy. With the recycling of all these batteries, we foresee that we can get back 50% of recycled metal into the value chain. And at that thought, I will pass on to the other panelists to input some thoughts over here. Thanks.
Thanks, Pawan. Prasanna, if you have anything to add.
Hello. Yeah. Like Amandeep rightly mentioned, the numbers and the penetration of the battery segment in India. While in talks of the EV industry growing in India, like around there are 2 million vehicles registered, EV vehicles. So it is combination of all like two wheelers, three wheelers, electric buses as well as the passenger vehicles. There are around 2 million actually registered on the RTO as per the RTO data as per March 2024. While looking at the growth, like passenger vehicle segment is growing almost by 60 to 65%, which is a very high growth. While Mr. Jain mentioned about the MG, like they have also came up with the subscription model of the EV battery. Like you can purchase a car and the battery will be owned by the company, but you can pay per kilometer, something like that. So looking at the growth and the uses of these vehicles on road, there will be more scrap generated within 5 years or 7 years. Like the 2 million vehicles which are already registered, the end of the life battery will start coming. Already for a few passenger vehicles, batteries have started coming for recycling because of the extensive usage of the batteries. And though the range and all has been developed, and the battery chemistry, due to the battery chemistry, the range of the vehicle has been increasing, and more people using the EV vehicles. Because of that, there will be a lot of scrap which will be generated. For example, the estimated vehicle to be registered by 2030, the EV vehicle usage is around 20 million. So from 2 to 20 million within next 6 years. So there will be huge battery scrap which will be generated. Again, like we don't have any of these critical metals which are used in the battery in India. Everything is imported, and battery cells are like assembled, and battery packs are made for the vehicles. While if we are planning to start a battery manufacturing units, we need more recyclers who will be working on creating the battery grade material. Because today, as we see, there are very few recyclers who are refining actually the black mass and extracting these critical elements out of it, like lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt. So we need more recyclers who can extract and also create a prechem or a battery grade material which can directly go into the battery. So there was like for the BYD you mentioned 10% is the battery manufacturing waste itself. So what is going to happen to that? Again, will we export that waste to some other country for recycling? So instead of that, there should be more recyclers like us who will be setting up a plant, or connecting with the manufacturers to recycle those manufacturing waste, as well as the huge chunk of lithium ion batteries which are going to come to cater those demand of the critical metals to complete the circular economy loop. We need more recyclers who will be refining the materials as per the battery requirement or the battery grade. So for example, our recycling capacity today is 4,200 metric ton per annum, which is very less recycling capacity compared to the battery waste which is coming up. EV batteries are still like around, they have started coming, but 5 to 7% of battery waste they are contributing. While rest of the lithium ion batteries are coming from the mobile phone batteries, laptop batteries, or storage device batteries. So once this EV batteries scrap starts coming, we need more refiners or more people who will recyclers who will create the battery grade material.
Right, Prasanna. Thank you for that. We'll come back on the sourcing questions also in detail later on. But Gaurav, you have any thoughts on the numbers that other panelists are talking about? Does this make sense to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I think all of them have covered most of what I would like to say. So I think they know the numbers probably better than I do. But what we understand is, Niti Aayog has a report which said by 2030 we can expect 128 gigawatt hours to be recycled. This report was probably 2 or 3 years old. And we believe that we will far exceed that number in our, given the adoption, what is happening here. I think ESS is a major factor that was not considered at the time due to what battery prices were. Today, looking at battery prices, and I mean, look around us, there's so many lithium battery manufacturers with stalls here, which shows that there's a huge shift towards towards lithium-ion batteries in the ESS space. So, as far as the recycling industry goes, I think it's still early for us as a country. I think each one of us here is trying to find its way when you compare it to globally. But a lot of credit to every person, every company sitting here, because all of us have set up our businesses without any kind of incentive, any kind of subsidy, which is when you look at the West, with all the assistance they have, they're still not being able to execute large scale recycling yet. So I think in India we understand that there's huge potential for recycling, and hence all of us have taken that bet, given the adoption and the population, the size of the market.
Thank you, Gaurav. Venkat, you have heard from other recyclers, but as the battery pack supplier, what trends you are seeing? Are you seeing the growth in this market? How is the change between NMC versus LFP now?
Thanks, Jyoti. Yeah, so I think as Chetan talked about, we do see, what we call it the flip in terms of chemistry. About 2 years back, it was predominantly NMC, more towards energy density, more towards, smaller form factor, and so on and so forth. Post, the regulations and the safety requirements and all, and the fact that LFP, the energy density has also slightly become better. Now we see that it has completely flipped around. If I were to make a sort of this thing today, 80% of what we do is on LFP, and a small portion which is still on NMC. Having said that, okay, I'll tell you my practitioner's viewpoint here. One, whenever I have NMC pack, where I have to recycle, I get approached by all the recyclers actually, and I'm also able to get 3x, 4x price. The moment I say that I have an LFP pack, it's almost considered as a waste only. Okay, so that's as I think as Chetan talked about, Pavandeep talked about, I think it's critical for us to realize that the battery chemistry is going to continuously evolve. I'm sure in the same room 2 years from now, this would be a different chemistry that we would be talking about. Maybe maybe a different form of LFP, maybe lithium sulfur, could be sodium, could be any one of these chemistries. So now the challenge is how do we make sure that the recyclers are able to set up their technology which is amenable for the change which is happening, right? So from a growth perspective, I think I agree with all the panelists. One, I think clearly now with the battery waste management rule that has come into force, now the EPR responsibility is for real, right? In the sense that we are supposed to go there, give our annual in terms of consumptions, how much is the EPR, try to get the certificates and so on and so forth. But the challenge that I'm also, and of course the energy storage is now picking up. So I do see that the market is growing. But at the same time, I do see that it is growing where we are not able to sort of because of this LFP versus NMC dilemma. We need more recyclers who can take LFPs and LTOs of the world and then try to do that. That's my limited comments on the Jyoti.
Thanks, Venkat. Maybe Pavandeep, you can elaborate a bit more how LFP and LTO are taken care.
See, as I stated, it is not LFP and MC. It's the technology development. Research and development is the most vital aspect if you want to be in the game of lithium-ion battery recycling. And technology differentiates you with the other players. As an organization, Atero, we were quite forecasted on the aspect of what we wanted to do. Our motive was to develop a technology, so we are very strong on the R&D side. Currently having 46 granted patents world over, with another 200 applied for. I think so we stand out in the global front with the most advanced technology. and working on those aspects. As Venkat stated, that LFP becomes a challenge. For us, it's not a challenge. We are able to make it profitable, may it be LFP, may it be any sort of chemistry ranging from LTO and all those. So, lithium carbonate to an extraction efficacy of above 95% is what we have achieved today. So those are the differentiating factors which would help a recycler to sustain for a longer duration of time. And its technology evolution, and it has to be incorporated in an organization on a regular basis. So that is what we foresee, and that is how we foresee the market would develop in the coming time frame.
Thank you, Pavan. Yes, yes, Chetan. You can add.
Hello. Yeah, it's working. So for LFP, I would just like to add one more point. So there are various technologies, and I guess that's one of the point that we are going to talk about. But for LFP, conversion to lithium carbonate is not just the one route. So if you talk about from the ecosystem perspective, there is a technology called direct recycling, where instead of taking out salt from the battery in the form of lithium carbonate, you directly rejuvenate the molecule and it convert into lithium ferrophosphate, which is essentially your LFP molecule. So as a company, we are the only company which has set up the cathode active manufacturing line, a pilot line, which is doing it via direct recycling. Lithium carbonate, of course, there are different ways and different processes via which we are doing it. But to ensure that even if the prices of lithium carbonate, if it drops below $5, we are still able to do it profitably. That's where I think technology differentiation that Mr. Pavan was talking about, that's going to come into play. And direct recycling is where you are able to save a lot of cost, which I think a lot of companies across the world is trying to achieve for. I think one thing which is becoming clear even for the Western world is that LFP is going to take care of ESS unless sodium ion battery starts reaching that scale and starts becoming cost competitive. Till that point in time, LFP is going to be the go-to chemistry in terms of the ESS market, and the pace at which ESS market is growing across the world, not just in India, that's tremendous. It's going to leave mobility market far behind in terms of the scale, because there are zero carbon targets which every country is taking on itself, and there is immense amount of renewable energy capacities which are going to build out, and these capacities have to be merged with ESS, and that's where the volume are going to get driven. So essentially, till I think the previous panel talked about 2028 is when the sodium ion chemistry will start becoming viable. But till 2028, LFP is going to be the go-to chemistry for the ESS market, and from there on, it's not going to be a day where suddenly everyone is taking sodium ion. There's going to be a transition which is going to take place, and of course, as the scale increases for sodium ion, so the cost is going to come down.
Thank you, Chetan, for that. I want to understand now. We have seen actually few players exited the market also. So let's talk about the challenges part and what could be the potential solutions to deal with these challenges. Maybe Gaurav, you can start with some broader challenges that you see in the recycling market.
Well, the major challenges will remain to be availability of raw material. I think all of us have set up capacities, and we are all looking for raw material, which is, you know, still not there. When we look at raw material today available, it's mainly from personal devices. There is some raw material coming out of two-wheelers that was sold a few years ago, but we are still far away from buses and cars, which are the large volume and high voltage packs that all of us seek. Energy storage story has just begun, so we are a long way away from that. So I think capacity utilization is still challenging for everybody. Uh, Circularity, we're still very early. All of us are doing mechanical separation. Some of us have gone beyond, but we still don't have any cathode or anode manufacturers yet in our country to form that circularity. I think we're at least 3 to 5 years away from that. So it's still a journey. It's still there's still a lot of work to be done. from this on this front. So I think it's going to take us some time, but it all begins really with raw material availability.
Prasanna, you have anything to add? What challenges as a recycler? Biggest challenges?
As a recycler, there are two things I would like to take up. For example, the pricing of the batteries, the scrap batteries. Everyone, most of the players which buy the batteries, or the aggregators or the producers who are selling, it is priced based on the LME price or the cobalt price, how much content is present in the battery. While in India, we have to pay to buy the scrap, while we were in Europe, where they are paying for recycling. So it is vice versa. Like everyone wants to get something out of the scrap also. While if you look at the processing cost and all, based on the rules which CPCB and Niti Aayog, MRAI, they have together built up the processing cost, how much cost goes into the transportation, how much cost goes into storage, and safely handling the batteries. We have seen a lot of fire incidents happening, or the batteries are not properly stored. So all that safety and regulations, recycler has to make sure while transporting, the proper licensed vehicle is used, or the hazardous vehicle licensed vehicle is used. So a lot of cost goes into handling of the batteries also. And post that, when you recycle, again, like Amandeep mentioned, R&D plays an important role. If anyone here is trying to set up a refining plant, they should start with the R&D first. Because black mass, we see many producers or companies are coming up with the black mass production, but the refining part, it is a very challenging part, because LFP battery, if we take an example, hardly 3 to 5% lithium is present in it. We have seen almost 3.5%, and out to extract that lithium out of that battery is very challenging. It becomes very complex, and you have to do a lot of R&D. Like we started when we started processing that chemistry, we were at 35%. So it doesn't make sense to extract that material. So we were not doing that. But as our R&D and research had gone, and with time we had achieved efficiency more than 90%, 95%. So based on that, we are now able to extract maximum lithium out of it. So this process, in the previous panel also, we were talking about the setting up process or improving the processes. So this is basically a process. Chemicals, the solutions, they are locally available. You have to just use and try doing R&D and tweaking the pH value, the chemical, the solvents which are used, and try to get maximum efficiency, because efficiency plays a bigger role into it will make a profitable business, or the feasibility to recycle. The efficiency will decide. Also, based on the producers or the EPR regulations which government has come up, it will also, I feel, support recyclers it will motivate more recyclers to set up a plant, and with the EPR policies, so that at least they will come at the break even, and with more technology and developments in place, we can recycle multiple chemistry of batteries. Like LFP has recently been developed, like the scrap started coming in, but before that NMC and LCO, other kind of chemistries were there. While we have set up, like you can call it, you have to set up a kitchen where you can cook different kind of foods. So the batteries are different kind of chemistries which will come to you. You need to be prepared and be ready for the change in the battery technology, so that you'll be more efficient when the scrap comes to you.
Thank you, Prasanna. Venkat, do you have anything to add on in terms of the pricing part that Prasanna just mentioned?
Yeah, so just not on the pricing, I have one more point to add as well. See, today I think the thought process is that the manufacturer does the battery, and then the next in queue is the recycling, right? I think we are missing some critical pieces in between. Today, I think the life of that should be you have a manufacturing, then you have a refurbishment, then you have a second life use case, and then it goes for a recycling. One challenge that we have been always seeing is that when you are sort of designing for
We are in competition with another hall.
I know.
So
Yeah, I'm not sure if you are able to hear in our voice. I
yes,
think there
you
is
can
too
keep
much
it
of.
closer to.
Okay. Thanks, Jyoti. So I think the challenge is one, we need to look at how do we use this for a second use case as well. Today, the concept of taking a battery and can I use it for a second use, right? In the sense that you design it in such a way that it can be dismantled, checked, and then you can refurbish or reuse it for another application does not exist. No, Chetan is going to talk about on the MG1, but I still want to make that claim saying that it does not exist, right? Because why? Two reasons. One, uh, it's going to involve a little bit more engineering and more cost, right? Today, the manufacturers or the OEMs are not willing to give that cost because it is not in their this thing to take a look at that. So what it means is that today the cost, that's where I'm coming, Jyoti, in the sense that today as a manufacturer today, I have to look at the total cost of energy over the life of the battery, right? Today, most of the discussion is centered around what's my upfront capital cost of the battery, right? How much am I selling it for? I think the question should be asked in terms of what would be my overall cost through the life of the battery. And then when I give it to the recycler, am I able to get back at the cost which I need towards the end of my cycle? That's not happening, right? Because of which I think there is a little bit of course, we don't want to treat that as a scrap, right? We did not get LFP at a scrap rate. So which means that we need to be sort of paying. So today the differential is you are only getting 5 to 10% of the cost of the cells when I were to recycle an LFP battery would not work, right? So we need to make sure that we invest in R&D, invest in other sources to make sure that we are able to eke out, better value out of the chain.
Right. Yes, Prasanna, you have to.
So regarding the refurbishment, like you rightly said, refurbishment also is an angle which we need to look on, and there are not as a battery scrap market or the EV market is developing, and lot of amendments are being done by pollution control board in the rules also. Like there were no battery management rule before November 2022. Only e-waste management rules were there. So they came up with the separate battery management rules. Now the EPR is in place, EPR portal is live, producers are uploading the data, recyclers are uploading the recycling data. While refurbishing, again, when the battery comes to you, comes to the recycler, he should make sure that whatever good cells are there in the battery, that needs to be checked and should be used for the secondary storage. But how to monitor that now? That is another other challenge. So, in the discussions with MRAI and CPCB, so they will be soon coming up with the refurbishment portal, where again the EPR liability. For example, if a producer is giving the batteries for recycling to a recycler, and let's say recycler is refurbishing like 20% of the batteries and selling it as a battery packs, who will bear the EPR responsibility then? Because it is going again out for the second life. So the EPR responsibility will shift to recycler, and recycler will become a producer for that second life refurbished batteries. That data he will have to upload on the refurbishment portal, and he will have to fulfill that EPR. While the producer, once the recycler has bought the batteries, he will fulfill the EPR responsibility for the producer. So the refurbishment angle coming into place, we feel there will be a policy which will be published for the refurbishment, which will help to solve this challenge and give a better value to the producer, I feel.
Thanks, Prasanna. Pavandeep.
So, thank you, everyone. I feel that the ecosystem is still in the development phase. What we talk about the manufacturer, the loop which is missing is the refurbishing. Refurbishing standards are still pending. When there would be correct standards related to the refurbishing aspect, the ecosystem would be in place. Once that is there, the value proposition as well as the end of life recycling proposition would also work out. So I think so it's the time which is required for the authorities to develop these refurbishing standards. I would like to put the point over here, specifically related to refurbishing. Refurbishing, which is happening today, it is quite hazardous in nature. The product is entering the household of a person. If there are no proper standards managed, it could result in very big repercussions for the brand as well as for the human life. So my thoughts are a refurbishment aspect and the standards have to be incorporated at the earliest to complete this value proposition for the OEM as well as the other players who are in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Pavandeep. Chetan, I have next question for you on the costs part of it. So, how do the costs of recycling differ across various battery chemistry commonly used? It depends on technology also. You can talk about bit on that. And then the
So,
cost.
as I mentioned initially, and I think all of us have been talking about it multiple times. Currently, there are three predominant chemistries. One is LCO, which is lithium cobalt, and it's a cobalt-rich batteries. Then the second is LFP, which has lithium as the predominant valuable material, and then the third is NMC, which has nickel, cobalt, and lithium, all three metals which are valuable. Now, LTO is, I would say, a sideshow. Even in the ESS market, LTO, because it's a poor density chemistry, it does not play a huge role in mobility. Apart from hybrid vehicles used by some of the Japanese companies in India, being Toyota and Maruti, no company is as such using LTO batteries. So, which essentially leaves us with three chemistries in terms of the cost structure. Now, I think the earlier question was also around what are the challenges that the battery recycling industry faces, and this also goes back to one of the challenge that I had in mind, which was related to commodity prices. Now, if you talk about commodities prices, if lithium is trading at around $10 per kg versus lithium trading around $65 per kg, there is a tremendous delta in terms of the revenue that you are going to make. So revenue, in terms of revenue, NMC is what fetches you the highest in terms of per kg, because it has nickel, it has cobalt, and it also has lithium. LCO is second in line, which has lithium and cobalt, and then LFP. I think LFP as a chemistry, my fellow panelists already touched upon it. LFP in the Western world, you get paid to recycle. It's not the recycler's job to pay money to get the material. In Western world, you get paid to recycle the material, and of course whatever you are taking out from it, it's your material and you can further sell it, because the cost of recycling is different, and the cost structures are very, very different in the Western world. Now, if I talk about the cost structure in itself, there are various components of cost structure. One is packaging, second is reverse logistics, and then the third component is processing in itself. Processing then can further be divided into two parts. One is mechanical shredding, and the second is refining. Mechanical shredding is what most of the players are doing right now in the market. Refining is being done by a very limited set of players. This is how the whole cost structure looks like. And uh, uh, in terms of the regulations, there are no regulations which currently exist in terms of the reverse logistics network or the forward logistics network as well. So that is something which government has to come out, and this is not true just for India. This is also true for US and Europe, where the reverse logistics regulations or requirements are not there, and that's why you see a lot of cases where when the informal market start moving this material around, you see those cases where there is fire in the vehicle. So this is something which we have to be very, very aware of. And the same thing also holds true for refurbishing or the second life, where of course if the material is being placed out by someone who is not uh, I would say a formal player, then you will have cases where the lives are at risk. But essentially you need to have formal players, you need to have regulations to ensure that the material movement is safe, and that's how the cost structure looks like.
Thank you, Chetan. Pavandeep, so Atero is one of the first mover and one of the biggest players also in the recycling industry. And since you're heading the sourcing department there, I want to understand from you how sourcing strategy, what is the strategy with respect to sourcing of batteries at Atero, and how Atero is able to crack that. We have heard from multiple players that sourcing is the biggest challenge.
So thanks for bringing that question. As I stated previously, there are or three aspects which have to be considered while sourcing the feedstock. The most critical is the forecasting of the pricing and how you are able to price it. If you are able to develop a mechanism where the pricing is directly linked to the commodity prices, I think so you are majorly safeguarded on those aspects. What are the capacities and how soon you can manage your feedstock for producing the pure metals? See, as on date or in the coming time frame, any sort of material with the purity would be sold in the market, because there are dynamics related to the requirement of material. If I talk about lithium carbonate, with these specs, purity of 60% is also usable in the industrial grade quality in different segments, and a specs what we are specifically creating for our industry, which is called 99.90%, is also required. There would be huge differentiation between the pricing of both these specs. That is the critical importance related to the sales. While sourcing, it is critically important how you forecast and at what price you achieve and buy the material. Another aspect would be the processing cost. See, we are able to manage all types of chemistry. You talk about NCA, LFP, LTO, NMO, LCO, any and every chemistry in the same production line, which helps us in reducing the capex as well as the opex cost. So these are few of the advantages what we have cracked in the due course of 15 years of our experience, and being there in the electronic waste side, we are able to generate revenues from other angles also, may it be copper, aluminum, and graphite, which we are recycling and converting into a battery grade quality. So these are the advantages what we have.
Thank you, Pavandeep. Gaurav, we can take few questions from the audience, but before that, from you, one last question on the policy side. Basically, we have seen battery waste management rules, EPR, but what is still the gap is, and in terms of anything state specific, any good case examples to talk about?
So on the policy side, I think the battery waste management rules are there for the last 2 years. Recently, they've just implemented environmental compensation, which is EC, and EPR being a part of that. We welcome that because I think recyclers really need EPR. Look, in anywhere else in the world, as you know, some of our panelists have said, you get paid to recycle, and there is still EPR as well. Whereas over here, we pay, and we pay a very high cost for batteries compared to anywhere on the planet. So EPR is essential. However, the EPR rates that have currently been finalized, we believe are far less than they should be if we compare them to anywhere else in the world. Look, it's the same kind of battery in Europe or America or in India. So why are we talking 1/5 or 1/6 the cost of EPR in India versus the rest of the world? I know maybe Venkat won't be happy with what I'm saying because he's a producer, but that's that's what is required. And why it's required? Because this is how recyclers will be motivated. There will be more recyclers coming in. There will be bigger capacities being built. There will be more money and talent being developed. More money going towards R&D. This is what we need. This is what our country needs. Right at the end of the day, all of us sitting here and more players to come. The idea is to build your own technology, build your whole ecosystem, and be circular. That's the ultimate goal for us and for the government. So if we are aligned on that, then the policy should go towards that. What we would ask for next, and I think some of us have been asking for the same, is some incentives and subsidies in terms of capital or a PLI kind of scheme. Although for recycling, those numbers are lower than cell manufacturing, but it's still a critical part.
Thank you, Gaurav. We can take some questions from audience, and in the conclusion, I would want the concluding remarks mainly, what the future will be. So you can impel. So yes, your name and your question, please.
Hi, good evening all. My name is Manish. I'm from a company called Litconic. My question to all the panelists, what is the percentage of your feedstock in terms of which is procured from organized market and unorganized market?
So percentage between organized and unorganized market that you have.
So there are again, this is not a very straightforward answer, right? if you look again, I'll go to my first answer, which is where the multiple sources of feedstock are being talked about: consumer electronics, mobility, and then ESS. Now there is an additional source which I didn't want to bring into the conversation, which is industrial waste. Now when you talk about industrial waste, it's cobalt and nickel are not the elements which have been discussed, because we want to use the lithium ion batteries. Cobalt and nickel as elements have been in use in multiple industries even before. For example, nickel is being used in electroplating, cobalt is used in steel manufacturing. So, and lithium is being used as your antidepressant in pharma sector as well. Now when you talk about formal versus informal sector, if there is immense value in the material and it can be recovered economically, then of course we would take that as well, because that's an industrial waste from which we can recover material. Now to your question, if I broadly categorize, the number would come to be around 30-70, 30 being from the informal sector and 70 being from the formal sector.
In my view, it is more related to pricing. What you can offer. If you can offer the substantial amount to the corporates, then why would the material go to the informal sector? What is your reach? We as an organization have developed the reverse logistics. So our ratio percentages would be much lesser in comparison to the other players who are there in the market.
Thank you. Any other question from the audience? Yes, you can say it like this. Can you pass on the mic, please?
Hi everyone, I am Achal from Accenture. Actually, I have two questions. Recently, there has been a regulation which suggests that in coming years, by 2027 and up till 2030, at least 5 to 20% of the recycled lithium has to be used in the cell manufacturing, domestically recycled, right? So I would like to ask the panel, do they foresee any challenge in terms of supply and demand? And the second question is, when it comes to using the recycled lithium in the cell manufacturing, is there any restriction on the percentage quantity that can be used as a recycled material? For example, 60%, 70% can only be used as a recycled material. So happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So regarding your first question, like 20% usage of the materials, recycled material, yes, there will be policy coming up because the other countries have already the policies in place. Like Apple is using recycled material into their battery manufacturing. While in India, we still don't have battery manufacturers, and there are companies who are planning to set up battery manufacturing plants. While cell manufacturing plants, and when they will require the input like the recycled material to be used, like we were talking about the volumes and the growing industry, there will be enough scrap available to recycle for the recyclers, and there need to be more recyclers to cater that kind of battery waste demand. So, and regarding the quality of the recycled material, so it totally depends on the what are the impurities present in it. So if you take them to very low impurities and 99.9% whatever the battery grade material is needed, or there are different battery grade materials based on their density, like 622, 811 is the latest with higher density. That kind of material, if recyclers are able to produce, that can be easily supplied to the manufacturers, and which will, I think, will help to use the 20% recycled material in it.
So I'll just add on to it. As I stated, the ecosystem is still in the development phase in India. So a recycler cannot provide the material directly. It goes through a precursor of cathode, precursor of anode. Subsequently, a product is made for the cell manufacturer to be incorporated. So the complete value system has to be there before we can talk about the recycled metals to be utilized. The policy still needs a lot of changes in it. There is more clarification, more details to be incorporated, and the ecosystem has to be there so that all these aspects can be taken care of. Uh, Making battery grade material, 99.5 is the threshold which is required. We are producing it, we are supplying out of the country. As on date, there is nobody to incorporate these into the value chain over here. So we are happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we can have just one last concluding. Okay, yeah, one last question from you, please.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Anurod. I'm also from Accenture. So two quick questions. One is, since you said like there is a feedstock availability issue, so what is the percentage split between how much you import battery scrap and how much is domestically sourced? And second is, since we have the capacity of recycling, but there are not enough EPR credits being generated. So why is the gap being how much is being recycled and how much EPR credits are being generated?
Anyone who's able to hear it?
Yeah, good question. So I think that clearly shows the gulf. The EPR portal shows the gulf in the requirement of the producers versus what is available there on the market. And the reason is, again, all of us have to build capacities in terms of refining. I think in refining, still we need to see commercial scale. I think right now there are few players here who have gone beyond black mass extraction. But is it at commercial scale? Are we being able to meet producers' demand for EPR? I think the portal shows that there's a clear gap there. Now, how do we enforce? What do we do to bridge that gap? Is to build capacities, commercial scale refining. But for that, again, we go back to raw material. The question you had asked earlier, what was imported versus domestic? So importing batteries into India is a restricted product. You need a lot of permissions for that. Some of us have those permissions, but it's still extremely tricky to bring hazardous waste from anywhere in the world back to India. Our focus always has been in telling the Ministry of Environment is that please let us have access to that material that is available in the Western world. We have to learn from small countries, other countries like Korea who have done that successfully. It's a government to government dialogue. We can go and source, and some of us are doing that. But as we can get access to more material, that will help the whole ecosystem build in India.
I would just like to add on Gaurav's point. So, while you may be seeing a lot of delta between the demand of the producers and the supply from recyclers, there is the another truth of the fact is there is still a lot of credits which are lying with recyclers which are not being transferred to producers. There are two aspects to it, of course, and some of it which we touched upon during our conversations here. Uh, Now that the floor price has come into the picture, everyone knows what the bare minimum at which these can exchange. But earlier that was one of the issues where producers with their all their wisdom, they just wanted to almost at free of cost, which does not reflect the true economics of the ecosystem. The second thing is which is pertaining to the bad players in the market, and we have seen some of this play out in the plastic sector as well as in the e-waste sector. And I think the government regulations, while the EC, the environmental compensation and floor price is a good start, there is a lot of ground that needs to be covered for us to reach at that stage where the capacities on the recycling side and the demand on the producer side for recycling will match in itself. We still have a delta there, but that has to be bridged in the right way and not the ways in which it has happened in the other sectors.
I think with this, let's conclude the session. We have limited time here. Any concluding final remarks from anyone from the panelists? Before buzzer is already rung.
Yeah. I had to give one comment. I could not sort of do that from from a manufacturer perspective. I really want, from a manufacturer, right? I want to see that we don't talk about recycling in 2 years, 3 years as soon as the cell is manufactured, right? Today, if you look at some of the battery chemistries, what used to be at about 2-3 year warranty, now we are talking about 5-7 years. In best, we are already talking about 10 or 15 years. We came across some cell which is talking about a 15,000 cycle. That is one. And number two, from our perspective, I think we should be looking at using the chemistry which are non-critical in nature, right? So I do not know whether it's 2028 or later, but we need to be, feeding in some of those chemistries like sodium ion. We need to fast pace that so that these guys look at something else to recycle, not from battery actually.
No, so I think the only point that I wanted to add is like uh, this is a very exciting space to be in. A lot of changes happen on a very frequent basis, and you have multiple stakeholders, be it producers, be it government, be it international companies, your own technology. The flux which we have seen in this sector, you would rarely see it anywhere. And one aspect which we very briefly touched in our conversation was around circularity and sustainability, and this is something which is at the core of what all of us are trying to do here. So I think the future is bright. We are very very optimistic around it, and we are both from the environmental perspective and more from the business perspective. We see this industry to have tremendous growth, and we are very very bullish on this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Pavandeep, you want to?
I just have one thought, that is, it's critically important to look at the circularity, decarbonization, and I think so. We are moving in the right direction. Only the support is required from the authorities as well as from the fellow players to develop the ecosystem in the right direction.
Thank you, everyone. With this, we would want to conclude. Manu, over to you now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope everyone is more informed and more enlightened on the topic of lithium ion battery recycling market trends in India. Is it? Are we feeling better, more informed on the topic? The lady in the purple kurta in the front, you're looking very pretty and you're smiling. You're like, I'm sure she's feeling very good about it. And I believe the gentlemen on this side are also feeling the same. So I would again like to take this opportunity to thank everyone on the panel, including our lovely moderator and the panelists, for being here with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your inputs, and your knowledge. And as Mr. Gaurav Dolwani already knows, since he was here with us yesterday, we have a tradition. We felicitate everyone on the panel as a token of our appreciation for acknowledging their presence and their company that we got to cherish today. So, Mr. Dolwani, I would request you today to please felicitate everyone else on the panel on our behalf, since you were already there with us yesterday. Thank you so much. Please come to the front of the stage. You're welcome. Just please stand in the center. You don't have to move it on. So for the first, all right. So first, I believe we have. Oh, okay. So the first panelist who's come forward, Venkat sir, did you get a photograph? Okay, one with where you were smiling. Okay, all right, great. So the first panelist that we've already felicitated, I would request everyone to please wait. Let me introduce everyone properly. Don't do this. All right, because I want everyone here who's just joined or has joined later and has missed the introductions to know who is stepping forward and who is who. Since you've taken out the time, everyone should know who you are and what you do, and So, okay, thank you. So, the panelist that we just felicitated was Mr. Venkat Raja Raman, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Signi Energy Private Limited. A huge round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Now, moving on to the next panelist, I would like to call forward Mr. Prasann Duffel, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Evergreen Recycle Karo India. The next panelist that I would like to call is Mr. Pavandeep Singh Bawa, Vice President, Sourcing, ATTRO. The next panelist that I would like to call forward is Mr. Chetan Jain, Senior Vice President, Business Operations, Loham. And last but definitely not the least, our lovely moderator, Dr. Jyoti Gulia, founder, JMK Research and Analytics. And now, for the sake of making memories, let's I'm asking everyone to please step forward on the front of the stage. Let's capture this moment as a group and look back at it with fond memories. Please smile for the camera and a group photograph. Thank you so much, everyone.